Yes, sir.
Hi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is my third time seeing you, and it's always just, I was almost tempted to go to that Bernie event today. I'm glad I did not. This was the right choice. My question's kind of a tough one, so I know you got to be kind of careful in the answer here, but you know, JFK also said, those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. I'm all for peace, I'm for Aloha, I'm for diplomacy. But when we get to a certain point, enough people are actually dying that this is a war, essentially. Not one that the people declared, but one that we're the victim of. I mean, we already have each year, the number of Americans dying from the opiate crisis is equal to the entire Vietnam War every year. At some point, when do we put on those yellow vests? We can try for peace as best we can, you know, have enough numbers that they just have to listen. They won't be happy about it, but they'll listen. When do we reach that point? I feel we might have been there maybe 10 years ago, but I'm just curious where you stand on that with the Yellow Vest movement and when enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Enough is enough. There's no question about how we, the American people, have had enough of the greed-driven policies that our representatives are passing in Washington. But again, I look to the example of the army of activists that Dr. King inspired, and that even in his own movement, there were those who questioned and criticized his nonviolent, love-inspired approach to change. They were very disciplined in this. They trained in this, that even when physically abused and assaulted, they didn't strike back. They didn't respond to that violence with violence. They didn't respond to that hate with hate. They simply stood strong, refusing to back down at great physical harm and peril, and even in some cases, their lives. And they were successful in bringing about so much historic change because of the way they chose to live and lead. So as we look to the change that we need to bring about, it's that example where I find the answer of setting that impeachable example that we are not a people driven by hate or violence, that we are a people who, standing up inspired by love, are willing to stand for and fight for those that we love. All of us, our brothers and sisters, and our country. There are so many ways to do that. The ballot box is the most simple way to make sure that this change is heard. But that alone, it requires many more steps to follow that. Every one of us here in this room has a sphere of influence where you're no longer just speaking for one, but you can help create this movement and this army for change, even amongst your own sphere of influence. This is about us, we the people, raising our voices to bring about changes to our campaign finance laws, to start firing those in Congress who are not working for us, to be able to make sure that our voices are being heard in Washington. As frustrating as it is, there are some examples that I've experienced myself, where on one day there was a bill that was coming to the House floor that seemed certain to pass, and within the span of less than 24 hours, there was an organic movement of people who started speaking up and saying, this is a bad bill because on Twitter, on Facebook, our phones are ringing off the hook, email boxes were being flooded, and something that went from a certain passage with bipartisan support fell with almost a complete 400 votes of support, of opposition because of that action that took place in that 24-hour time period. It's not easy, but exercising all the tools of our democracy is what we need to do to bring about this change. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen.